Thanks for listening to Gossip with Celebrity, brought to you by Celebrity.com. This week we have a relatively spoiler-free talk about Mare of Easttown, and we also talk about the Royals. We end with our weekly feature, the comments of the week. The stories, photos, and tweets we talk about can be found at Celebrity.com/podcast under episode 93. Hi, I'm Katie, the founder and editor of Celebrity.com, and I write as Celebrity.
And I'm Chandra, I'm the head writer for Celebrity, and I write as Kaiser.
So we were off last week for Memorial Day. So we'll have 2 more episodes, and then we're going to be off for 2 weeks because I'm going away, and then it's 4th of July.
Yay.
Yeah. We'll tell you about it as it gets closer.
This week has been really slow because it's post-Memorial Day. It's just been very slow going.
And that's harder for us in a way because we have to dig for the gossip.
And plus there's this weird royal lull. All of a sudden people are just kind of spinning their wheels. I think after the Scottish tour, the royals were just okay, let's take a few weeks off of everything. I guess everyone's waiting for Meghan to give birth as well.
If she does before this comes out, I'll put a little update in it and we'll talk about it later. But yeah, it feels like it's going to be any minute now.
I bet it's a few more weeks.
Okay. She said summer's. Well, summer's officially the 21st of June.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Mare of Easttown, the HBO murder mystery show with Kate Winslet. And you mentioned it 2 episodes ago in episode 91. And you were like, I don't know if you're going to like it because it's a murder show. And I don't like murder shows.
Yeah. Part of it is police procedural. Part of it is the murder investigation. But it was also a character drama. And I just didn't know if you would be into that kind of thing because you usually aren't.
You were right because I normally am not. It's not my genre of show. But everybody on Zoom has been watching it. All my friends are watching it. So that convinced me. No offense to you. You told me to stay away from it. So I listened to you. But I started watching it and I loved it. And I've watched it all since. And the finale has aired since too.
Yeah. And it was awesome because people were watching it in real time. It felt like it was something everyone was watching all at once, like Game of Thrones used to be.
We haven't had that, yeah.
That was really exciting to have a sort of water cooler show to talk about online, and that was awesome.
It was cool. It took it a little bit to pick up, and then everybody watched it.
Yeah.
It was an incredible show. I couldn't believe how much I liked it. And they made you think that everybody was the murderer.
I wasn't like that. I wasn't paranoid about, he could be the murderer. I just thought it was kind of vaguely Guy Pearce. And then it became clear that they really weren't going to go in that direction. And I was like, all right. So yeah. I was wrong. So it's just going to be some guy.
Yeah, I thought it could be him too, because he was the guest star other than Kate Winslet because they were in Mildred Pierce together. Mm-hmm. And he seemed like the other big star. So the other big star did it, right? So we're not going to tell who did it or the other spoilers, except maybe it wasn't that guy. But
yeah, I covered that story where basically Guy Pearce got the job because he knows Kate Winslet and because they have such a good working relationship. They needed an actor to fill in that role very quickly at very short notice. And so Kate just called up her friend Guy Pearce and she was like, hey, come to Philadelphia, come over and just film for a few weeks and we'll have fun and we'll get some hoagies and whatever.
Get some hoagies. I saw another article about how good she was at eating in the roles because she's always shoving something in her mouth eating this giant sub.
Well, podcaster Kate Casey, she pointed out that the one sort of mistake that Kate Winslet made is that she was eating like a European. She was holding her knife and fork like Europeans hold their knives and forks, not like Americans.
Yeah, not in the opposite hand.
I thought Kate did a really great job across the board. I did not find her accent work all that consistent. Okay. The Delco accent really came and went. But it was good. It wasn't like she just slipped into a British accent. She was just doing a flat American accent for part of the time, and then part of the time she was doing that regional dialect.
You're very in tune to the accent issues. I don't notice them as much. But you always notice when you watch a show, if the accent is right or not.
Yeah, because, I grew up with 2 parents with very strong accents. My mother has a very thick Southern accent. My dad had a very thick Indian accent. I try to speak with a flat American accent and it comes across very Southern sometimes, but I catch myself saying certain words with an Indian inflection.
Oh, that's nice. I don't think I have an accent until people are like, "Oh, you're from upstate New York."
Yeah.
Yes.
I can tell you have a New York accent. You do.
I was like, "Yeah, I am." You called it.
It's just certain words, though. Most of the time you do have a flatter accent, but when you say gossip.
Gossip. Yeah. My friend Lisa from Zoom, I think I told you this, or I might have said it on the podcast. She's also from upstate New York. And the first probably like 8 months or something, I was talking to her. I was like, why am I copying her? This is really weird. I must like her or something. Like, what is wrong with me? And then I found out she grew up an hour away from me. So we have the exact same accent. Mine gets more prominent when I'm talking to her. Like when my mom talks to her girlfriends from Long Island, that accent really comes out.
Right.
So that's what was happening. So we talked about Mare of Easttown on Zoom, and this is a spoiler-free talk. This is Ameerah, Lisa, and Ashley.
There seems like there are full stories for each character, even if we don't get all of the details. Each character we can go, yeah, they had all this stuff going on clearly behind the scenes outside of like the main storyline. And I'm glad that they didn't necessarily expand on everything because I think it would have made everything really jumbled. But you still got really full characters.
It was actually like a different show than people realized at first they were watching, because the things that were the most compelling were like the family drama and like the interpersonal drama. And that's why it ended up working a lot on like a much higher level than like the typical, murder mystery shows, because the mystery was really compelling too. And it was, I think, pretty satisfactory the way that worked out. But that wasn't why the last episode was so hard hitting. Like those aren't the scenes you're thinking about the most. Like none of them are good people, but I would totally go and hang out with like Mare and her mom and her.
I would hang out with Mare and Helen anytime. Anytime. They are a hoot and holler together. Come on.
I don't think they're bad people, but I think we did get a show where we were presented with people who were people and they weren't put on a pedestal. They were shown as being good sometimes and then doing some bad things, because you end up feeling bad for most people.
So yeah, it was really a character study. I think that's what made this story so good.
It's not a spoiler to say, like, the 5th episode, it changed so much about the story. All of a sudden, there was so much urgency. The way they wrote all of those different arcs for each character, it was really great. I just thought it was a very well-written series, very well done.
Yes.
I'm glad they didn't do something based on a book, because that helped. Because there weren't book readers, in everyone's comments saying, wait till this and this happens. No one knew what was happening. Oh my God,
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
They did that with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like, well, they changed this, and this really should have done this, and this is what's coming next. Yeah, and there was this know-it-allness to it, too.
Right. There was none of that for this show. It was great.
Yeah.
We were all experiencing it at the same time.
It's an excellent show. So you said it reminded you of The Killing.
Mm-hmm.
With Joel Kinnaman
and Muriel Enos. And
okay.
I only watched the first season of that because I was so upset with the fact that they didn't solve the crime at the end of the first season. I understand procedural cop dramas. Don't leave it so up in the air at the end of a season. They didn't solve anything in one entire season. They solved nothing. And everyone talked about it at the time that like the showrunner just really fucked up that show. And when I read that thing from the Mare of Easttown writer saying, we were really inspired by The Killing, I was like, oh no, they're not going to solve this murder. But that's where it was great that it was a mini series. They had an ending in sight. They knew how they were going to end it, where The Killing did not know. They just kept on adding all this other bullshit when they found out they were getting a second season.
So you covered that interview with the showrunner, and he said that there might be a second season, but they have no idea yet.
Yeah, he hasn't written anything. He said, maybe I'll bounce around some ideas. It would just be very contingent on if Kate Winslet was available, if she wanted to do a second series. They would do an entirely new crime. I mean, he was like assured of that. So it wouldn't just be, like, oh, so-and-so didn't really kill that person.
I would watch it. I really enjoyed it, and I'd like to see more of the people. And it was like Lisa was saying, like you felt like you wanted to hang out with them, even though you knew they were not good people. They just seemed real.
Yeah, all of it seemed real. Like even the actors outside of like big name stars. They felt very
Yeah.
real. They felt authentic to that area of Pennsylvania. And I liked that it was a regional drama and it didn't dumb down people and make everyone sound like they're from the sticks, that everyone's just a dumb redneck. I mean, there were some dumb rednecks in that show.
But they weren't stereotypes, really.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And it seemed like real. And I like how Kate Winslet, she just seemed like a whole person. Like at times she could dress up and look nice, but other times she's just hanging out in her sweats. And she just, she just seemed really regular.
Yeah, I like the small touches, like, her walking with a limp.
Yeah,
the way that she was like remembering that her arm was injured. She was like always screwing with her cast and like that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Royals. So we haven't talked on the podcast about the Apple Plus show with Harry and Oprah called The Me You Can't See. It was powerful. It was a lot more than I expected. And it was really hard to take at some points. Like I had to meet it out over a few days. It's not something you can binge watch because it's about some serious issues and trauma that people have.
Yeah, I watched like 3 episodes one night and I had to like put it down for an hour, go for a walk, and like really think about what I was watching and then like come back to it.
Yeah. Well, the first 3 were the most intense. And then after that, they kind of showed more people healing and stuff. I got an understanding of mental illness and trauma and healing in a way that I haven't before. I studied psychology in school, but I haven't seen it explained that well, particularly about schizophrenia and bipolar and things like that have been really stigmatized. I think they did a good job of humanizing that.
Yeah, the story of the young woman with schizophrenia and how she described her early symptoms, after her father died.
Yeah.
I was so devastated for her that it was all happening at once and that she was at her father's funeral with these voices in her head. That was so upsetting to me.
And the older woman, too, who talked about it when she first came in, I thought she was going to be a therapist. She was somebody with schizophrenia, too.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to make it clear that schizophrenia is something she has. It's not her whole identity. She's not a schizophrenic. She has schizophrenia. That, for me, really made a lot of sense. And it helped me examine the prejudices I've had against people with mental illness. We only see it portrayed as this extreme thing, when a lot of people are living with these disorders.
Yeah, I was very moved. And as I was watching it, I was like, I cannot believe that the royal press is freaking out about this so much because it was such a well done series. They really tried to talk about it in very real terms and not say, oh, this is the solution to this problem. It's like, this is what people are dealing with. Have compassion. These are some of the things that we can do to help, but some of these things will never be solved.
That's a good point, too. And I really liked the panel discussion at the end that they have where they showed all the experts they talked to. There were so many experts. And they said that they watched all the episodes before they aired and advised them. That really came through.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell there were no easy answers. It wasn't packaged with a bow like so many shows we've seen, like, oh, look, here's the happy ending.
Right.
It was more of a journey with people who are dealing with things.
And like by the last episode, when they were introducing that severely clinically depressed man who was trying the LSD therapy, I was like, I'm not sure if I have the emotional capability of like caring about this guy's journey, because he was so like, nothing is going to help me. Then he was like, oh, the LSD really helped. And that was so exciting to me that he found some sort of like breakthrough there.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that kind of therapy. Tanisha has a podcast called The Aha Experience, and she interviewed a doctor who does LSD therapy. And they talked about how effective it is for people with PTSD and severe depression and different kind of psychedelics used clinically.
And like, did you notice that like they didn't want to say it, but it was like a subtext for that particular guy is like the LSD helped him stop being so fucking repressed for a second. That was what led to the breakthrough. He was so tight. He was so like in denial about what was the root cause of his depression.
Oh, that's cool. So honestly, by the last one, I was like you. I was like, okay, this is a lot.
Yeah.
I was in the kitchen cooking when I watched that one. So I watched it, and for me, the takeaway was, well, this really helped that guy.
Yeah.
And they made it clear that it's sort of illegal, but they had the rights to do it with him.
Yeah,
They
like
had
the
permission.
hospital had like some sort of government something or other to use like a chemical component that is a lot like LSD.
Okay.
I don't remember the specifics either because I was like, oh God, I can't care about this guy.
No more people.
Yeah.
Because it's like a new person at the end, and we're following all these other people. And I was like, what? So you said that you really liked the story of the young woman who Oprah kind of mentored. She was formerly homeless, and Oprah helped her out, and she went back to work at the homeless center for youth where she had formerly lived, and she got severely triggered by that and was really having a hard time. And Oprah didn't handle it well.
No.
And they left that whole thing in, which is...
Yeah, it was like showing that it's not a smooth journey to recovery. It was like this young woman she has severe depression. She has all of these things going on. And Oprah like got on Zoom with her and she was like, so where are you going to live after this? What are you going to do after this? Oprah was just putting so much pressure on this young woman who is still technically in recovery. And like the girl started crying and Oprah was like, all right, bye.
Oprah has known her for years at that point. And it just shows that even somebody like Oprah, who really tries to work with experts and know what she's doing and handle things sensitively, doesn't always get it right.
Yeah, she doesn't. And I kind of felt for Oprah because she's executive producing this series and she left that in just to show that she doesn't know everything to say, but also to like show that she gets really frustrated with people who are in recovery too. Like she's frustrated that it's not a smooth journey for them, that she can't just say, so where are you going next? Where are you going to go after you go into this therapy?
Yeah.
She wants to be able to say that to everyone.
Yeah, she wants to help people in a clear path, and she's a planner and a doer, so she wants to get it done. Mm-hmm. And that's not really how it works. So the royal commentators have been using this to attack Harry, like you were talking about earlier. And it's egregious because he's only being open about his own mental health journey. And it's very similar to what they did to him after the armchair expert interview.
And they're calling it like truth bombs and like acting like the whole show is based around him spilling family secrets or attacking his father or attacking his family. He's not. He's saying some shady shit, but it's also very true. And it's his lived experience as a 12-year-old who was traumatized by his mother's death. That's his story, too. It's not just, family secrets. It's Harry coming to terms with all the shit that's happened to him.
And he was incredibly open and vulnerable and talking about his own journey. And if he wasn't involved with this project, even though it's Oprah, not as many of us would be watching it.
No. I don't think I would have watched it if Harry wasn't involved.
I know I wouldn't have, because Oprah's had her own network forever and she's had similar shows and I haven't watched them.
Yeah. I love Oprah, but I also find her a bit preachy sometimes.
Yeah, she can be. It depends on who she's talking to, because sometimes she's talked to people who are spouting a lot of bullshit and she helps prop that up. But in this case, this was really needed and important. And it started a discourse, I think, that's going to change the way we think and talk about mental health. I hope this has a wider effect and like more people are talking about it. So Camilla Tominey, she writes for the Daily Telegraph. She called Harry smug and self-pitying and said he had spiteful rhetoric in that show. And she compared it to Diana's Bashir interview. Of course, they're just mischaracterizing everything like we were talking about.
Much like the armchair expert reaction pieces, this all just seems so rote. It just seems like they're just kind of going along. Okay, yeah, Harry is scandalous. Oh, he's ruining the monarchy. They're just going through the motions.
Yeah. And it's the same reactions from the royal family, too.
Yeah.
So Prince Charles is boiling with anger and tortured by Harry's digs, supposedly. That was in Us Weekly, so who knows, but it seems like it's something they would say. And Prince William is disappointed and greatly concerned about Harry. And that was in the British press. And that's a change from their narrative about how he's so mad he wants to punch him or whatever. And then the Queen is absolutely gobsmacked and deeply upset. So they're all, being hurt by Harry as per usual.
Yeah. The Queen story was a little bit different because they claimed that Harry lied to the Queen.
Oh, yeah.
That he told the Queen that the series was going to be about veterans. And, I mean, I could sort of understand that he would have told that to the Queen in 2019 when the series was first coming together and they were first trying to figure out what was going on. And then, he just didn't update her. He wasn't calling her and saying, this is what the series is about now, Granny.
Or, I kind of said more than I intended to in this last one.
Yeah. So, and anyway, if they wanted to have a say in what Harry and Meghan did, then they wouldn't have kicked them out. They would have let them stay half in.
They would have had more of a discussion with them about that.
Right. They didn't want that, so fuck them.
Yeah. So here's a segment from Zoom where we talked about this. This is Karen and Ilnaz.
I appreciate that Harry is speaking out and being vulnerable like that. And I appreciate all the people who are participating in this because that cannot be easy.
I mean, and the best part of all of this is that, he's doing wonderful things to help people. They're doing great things. They're just winning. Let's be clear. These are people with extreme privilege anyway. Even though they are suffering, they're still starting in a better place than so many other people. And yet it's so wonderful just to see them winning. It's awesome.
I get sick of, of course, it's the royal reporter. So it's that narrative is always, well, he's a prince and he lives in a $14 million home. Did we mention he has 16 bathrooms? Have we not learned anything from Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade? People from on the outside look like they have it all, but clearly it was not enough.
Robin Williams.
Have we not learned that fame and fortune and privilege, it doesn't mean that you're not suffering from anxiety and depression and feelings of worthlessness. They're talking like they have not watched this documentary at all and are not listening to him. They're trying to push this narrative like Harry needs to shut up because he's hurting the monarchy. I'm like, if Harry's speaking out, it's hurting the monarchy, then the monarchy wasn't as strong to begin with. I wasn't surprised by anything he said.
So yeah, it's like Karen said, they didn't really actually listen to anything Harry said. And if they did, they couldn't address that because it's very damning to the royal family.
I mean, every one of the British papers, they did some coverage and they used a lot of the quotes. They just didn't make a big deal about the most damaging quotes. They were very choosy about what they were outraged about.
Okay.
You notice that, what Harry said about how his mother was chased to death while she was in a relationship with a non-white man.
Yeah.
That was barely a one-day story in the UK.
Because that is damning to them.
Right.
Because the press are the ones who hounded Meghan.
Right.
For every little thing.
They stopped talking about that within 24 hours.
And did they even talk about the fact that when he was a little kid, nobody talked to him about his mother, at all after she passed?
They made it sound like that was just one of Harry's many attacks on his father. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they have a narrative and they're running with it.
Yeah. So Kate and William also went on a royal tour in Scotland for a few days, and we talked about that in our last episode because that was planned. And we were joking about how it was all leisure activities. I seriously thought you were joking in your preview of that, but you were not. So they went go-karting, which we did not hear about ahead of time. They visited their alma mater. They watched Cruella. They went to go see a football team. It was just a vacation for them.
Yeah. One of the craziest things, and people were acting like it was totally normal. If I visited my old alma mater and my old college town, I know exactly where I would go. I know all the restaurants I would want to visit. Yeah. I would want to go see all the spots. I went drinking when I was in college and, I partied there. And Will and Kate just went and got pizza and they looked like they wanted to kill each other or die, the entire time. Their body language and their lack of chemistry was really notable, especially when they were visiting St. Andrews.
Yeah, because he cheated on her. And she still doesn't forgive him. I mean, I wouldn't forgive the fucker, but I'm not in the royal family. So, yeah, he cheated on her and she's...
Well, that's the crazy thing. Kate was doing some work. Like, Kate was, like, trying to look happy and positive and, you know, she was, like, doing her crazy laugh at all of the events. And, like, Will just looked like he wanted to die. He looked so miserable throughout the entire tour, while Kate was, like, doing all of the emotional work of trying to be positive. The whole thing was just weird.
Yeah. But William is going to save Scotland from becoming independent from the UK. So that was the whole reason they went there, was to try and stop the Scottish independence vote, which might happen next year or the year after. And William had a secret meeting with the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown when William was in Edinburgh. The photographers caught Brown trying to visit him, and then they had to own up to it, but they were trying to hide it before that.
Right. And I think technically the Kensington Palace is now saying that Kate was in the meeting with Gordon Brown too, although I'm not sure if that's true. Okay. I think that they could have gotten away with the Scottish tour, even with all the lightweight activities. They could have just said, we were just, you know, having fun. We were just doing our light activities. We love Scotland. That would have been neutral. Scottish people would have been like, okay, whatever, you're fine. And then, like, they had to do the meeting with Gordon Brown and, like, make it super political. And it was just embarrassing. It was embarrassing how ham-fisted that was.
Yeah. Well, Kate is wearing tartan, like, in half the photos.
The buttons were out of control.
There were a lot of buttons.
The tartan, she didn't wear tartan every day, which, I mean, props to her, I guess.
Right. And like their last visit there, where they were not even supposed to be traveling, Scottish press blasted them. And they said, you know, the British royal family uses Scotland as its own personal tartan Disneyland.
People loved that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people think that's true, that a lot of the posh British people or English people, they just go up to Scotland and they treat it like, oh, isn't it cute? Isn't it quaint? It's like a little amusement park.
And they go hunting and, you know, traipsing around. So before and after that tour, we got all the embiggening pieces, just like clockwork, pretty much. And Kate is the glue, the greatest asset of the royal family. And she's like Prince Philip because she makes everybody get along or something. That was what Katie Nichols said. And we also heard that Kate has like this amazing social media strategy and she's coming up with all these ideas to make videos on her own. And then her uncle keeps talking smack about Harry. And we heard before that he thinks Kate should be queen, you know, right after Elizabeth dies, basically. And
no, well, like, wait. Gary Goldsmith basically made it sound like the queen needs to abdicate, Charles needs to go away, and Kate and William need to be king and queen right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was that severe. I thought it was like, well, when the queen dies, then Kate's next.
No, he was honestly like, the queen needs to retire. He was like, retire that old bitch and make Kate queen.
That's messed up.
It was ridiculous.
I didn't know that. I didn't read the whole thing. And then he talked to Closer magazine and he propped up Kate again, called her brilliant and all this crap. He's just an asshole.
Yeah, and like, once again, Kate and William's PR has diverged. It is fully diverged at this point. That Kate is the brilliant arbitrator. She's the linchpin holding together the monarchy. She's the jewel of the crown. She's the royal revolutionary who is going to be future queen. And then they started in on, oh, and she's helping William with his role. William couldn't do any of this without Kate. And William's PR is not that at all.
William's PR is all that he's doing it alone, right?
Yeah, that he's doing it alone, that Kate is fine, Kate stays home and raises the children, but William is the future king, and William is doing all of this, and blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
There's something really screwy going on with...
They're not living together. They're not working together.
Yeah, but like, Kensington Palace has been really obvious with how their PR has diverged, Kate and Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that Kensington Palace is any kind of brain trust.
No.
Not at all. But like, it's especially noticeable over the past 3 or 4 months. Something weird is going on over there.
Well, because Jason Knopf left, and he was probably dictating, or at least the point person for coordinating stuff. And now that he's gone, they're scrambling. And plus, they're having more problems in their marriage, and they don't have coordination among their offices.
Yeah.
So in episode 82, we talked about how the Queen can vet bills before they're passed in the UK. This provision called the Queen's Consent. She used this power to hide her wealth from the British public, so they don't know how much money she has. And Prince Charles also used this to make sure that people renting property on his vast Duchy of Cornwall estate can't ever own their homes. So they're using these old laws protecting the monarchy to protect their own interests.
Yeah.
We've already talked about that, but we just heard this week that Buckingham Palace used the same law so that they were exempt from equal employment laws and the Equality Act, which prohibits discrimination in employment.
Right. It's even more nefarious than that. Not only did they want to ensure that Buckingham Palace, were exempt from the law, they refused to allow the government to certify the law before they got their own way, before they got exempt from it. So they were holding this equality law hostage.
Ooh, I didn't even know that. That's egregious. So we found out that Buckingham Palace had racist hiring tendencies at least up until the late 60s. And the Queen's chief financial manager told other people in 1968 that, quote, it was not in fact the practice to appoint colored immigrants or foreigners to clerical jobs.
Right.
In the palace. Whew. And so in response, Buckingham Palace issued a statement to this that basically said it's a secondhand conversation from over 50 years ago, and that the royal household and the sovereign complying with the provisions of the Equality Act in principle and in practice. And as you wrote, they might say they're complying with it, but they're not subject to that law by their own lobbying.
Right. Saying you are adhering to the Equality Act in principle.
Yeah, theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically. You're in compliance, full compliance. Don't worry about it. Don't double check or anything. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, you've spent years lobbying so that you don't have to be in compliance with it. And even today, people who work for Buckingham Palace don't have the same sort of equal protection clauses in their employment. Like, they couldn't sue their employer if they felt they were being discriminated against. They have this wacky system where you have to complain to some judge's cat supervisor. It's really heinous. And yeah.
It sounds pretty bad. So we saw what happened with Meghan. And they tried to smear her and claim that she bullied staff right when the Oprah interview came out.
Yeah.
And they said that they were going to have a whole investigation on that. But of course, nothing came of that because they know that they're full of shit.
Right. And part of that whole pre-Oprah smear campaign was that weird incident. I think it was in a Times of London story where there was some unnamed source claiming that the Queen's equerry he's a black man, and they sent him to Meghan to help her out because he's black and she's black. So obviously he would be able to help her navigate her role as a duchess. Oh. And they were saying that as a good thing. No, really, we gave her this black person to help her.
That's like the guy who slept rough with William. He's like, I slept rough with William. I got this black friend.
And they're holding each other, and William looks ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah. Look, I'm not racist. I hung out with this guy once.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's move on to the comments of the week. So my comment of the week is from Gabby on Twitter. So I wrote a story about a study that found that waking up an hour earlier was protective against depression. And they had studied It was a ton of people that they studied. So I loved writing that because I wake up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you get more done in the morning. So Gabby retweeted it with the comment, "Who knew my cats have my mental health in mind?"
No, that's true too, because Panther Kitten wakes me up so many mornings.
He woke you up yesterday morning because all the comments were moderated when I woke up, right?
That was this morning.
Was it yesterday? That was today, yeah.
Yeah, he did. He woke me up this morning. I was up at like 3:30.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. Well, life with cats.
Yeah, I was like, Chandra's up. I can tell.
My comment of the week is Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck were seen out on a date in LA. And like, I'm enjoying this, whatever. Like, I don't care if other people aren't enjoying it. It's amazing
fun
to me.
And if you ever meet somebody who doesn't know about gossip and they find out your job and they're like, tell me the gossip, you're like, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez are back together. They're like, really? This actually happened to me. Like, people are like excited about it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because everyone remembers that, like, especially our age. Like, everyone remembers Bennifer. It was such a huge story at the time.
Yeah.
And this is just a side note. Like, I want Ben and Jennifer to make it to the Met Gala. Met Gala is going to be in September. Like, fingers crossed. Let's really hope that they can make it to the Met Gala, because that would be amazing.
I hope he looks like all plucked and freshly Botox and stuff.
Like he did
like A-Rod was looking.
Yeah.
Right? A-Rod looked like that too. Like him at the Geely premiere with his hair in that perfect coif.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want him to look like that again.
Remember when Ben showed up at the Oscars with her and she was wearing that absolutely gorgeous Valentino mint green, and he looked so orange and so like a Ken doll? Like, Jen really does that to her men. Anyway.
Yeah, she does. Okay, I'm with you. I want them to go to the Met Gala.
Right. It'll be amazing. Okay, so
yes.
Merricat, her comment was, I think the problem for Ben has always been that she adores him and doesn't hold back her adoration in public. He loves it, needs it, sucks it up like the emotional vampire that he is, but ultimately he hates himself. So he has this little corner of contempt for her because she loves him so dramatically. That comment blew my mind.
It's deep and true, and it's true of a lot of relationships.
Oh
too.
My God, it's so true of Ben specifically. That is why he, quote unquote, gets bored.
Yeah.
When he gets serious with a woman. It's because he has that shadow of contempt for her that she loves him.
Yeah. He doesn't think he's worthy.
It's part of his self-sabotage as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that comment blew my mind.
It's pretty deep. It's good. It's true, too. I hope you stay sober. And yeah, I hope they make it. I would love it if they made it to Christmas and if they started putting stupid Instagram posts together and stuff like she did with A-Rod and put Ben's kids in there. I would love that.
I don't think that... Don't you think Jennifer Garner will have a lot to say about all of this?
I should have thought about that, because she doesn't put pictures of her kids up, and Ben doesn't either, so.
Yeah, but Garner is making sure that he spends a lot of time with the kids right now, so he can't go running off to Miami to his mamacita. But, yeah, she's being very obvious with that one. I think they'll make it through September.
That'd be awesome.
I've got my fingers crossed for it. But beyond that, who knows? The Instagram stuff, I would say in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. She's been really lame with her Instagram, like posting about herself. Like they make fun of her on Twitter all the time. What was that Love Don't Cost a Thing where she was walking down the beach and like throwing her jewelry off? Everyone's like, no, this is not it, Jennifer.
She was trying to create a challenge and like no one did
and
it.
Everyone's like, nope. You looked at the hashtag, nothing.
Because no one has their own private beach.
They don't want to throw their jewelry in the sand. Go figure.
Oh.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, bitches.
Thanks, bitches.
Thank you for listening to the Celebrity Podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. If you like us, please turn off your ad blocker when you visit our site. You can text us or leave a voicemail at 434-218-3219. Our music is from AA Alto, Maiden, and via Premium Beat and Sound of Picture. Thanks again.
That was a funny way to end it.
Yeah, I was like, let's end it.
All right.
All right.